The other day I watched this YouTube short of Justin Chancellor from Tool playing this crazy bass exercise. That reminded me of a few similar exercises that I used to do growing up to work on accuracy, speed, stamina, strength, and just general good bass technique. So I have one here for you, which is just a horrible exercise, but it's good for all those things. This is how it goes. Regular viewers will know that I'm a big fan of musical sounding bass guitar exercises. I've written a whole book of them. This is not one of them. It's just very good for those hands. So we're going to go through it now, very slowly. You can download the tab below. And I want you to look at the tab. Usually I like notes, but now this is only going to make sense if you read the tab. I'll just quickly go through tab if you don't understand it or you're new to bass. The bottom line is the E, then you have A, D and G, and the number is just the fret. That's where you put your finger. In fact, all the numbers here, you can follow the finger numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. They tally. So look, here we go. 1. So that means fret 1, G string. Then we've got 2, 1. And we're going diagonally across, starting from here. We're going like there, there, there. You'll see what I mean. It's hard to explain, but when you see it, you'll get it immediately. 3, 2, 1. I'm not going to name notes today, just fret numbers. Going from G, D, A, it's 3, 2, 1. And this is why it's tricky, because we've got notes on different strings all the time. There's never more than one note on a string. So what do we do with our plucking here? Well, you can either go middle, index, middle, or rake, which is just to use one string to pluck, and that's sort of half cheating a bit, and that's what I'm doing because it's quite tricky. Then we've got 4, 3, 2, 1. So if I isolate that, I can go index, middle, or middle index actually. Either way, I find that hard to do. Good opportunity to practice that. Then we've got 4, 3, 2, D, A, and E strings, then 4, 3, and then 1. So I'm thinking about this in like a 4 fret span, and we're using one finger per fret here. So we've got 4 frets on the G, the D, the A, and the E. And we start here going diagonally. Then you start on the first fret, E string, and you go diagonally from this way, and then you go here and diagonally that way, here, diagonally that way. You'll see what I mean. I'll do this little section of the exercise here. So, first finger, first fret, E string. And then we go 2, 1, E to A strings. 3, 2, 1. E, A, and D strings, and that's the same fingering as I'm saying the fret number. And then 4, 3, 2, 1. You know, that's tough. If you're going this way where the strings are getting higher in pitch, but you're going towards the floor, that's quite easy to do your alternate plucking. So there, I was going index, middle, trying to keep everything smooth, trying to keep the muting going, no strings ringing out. Then we've got 4, 3, 2, the A, D, and G strings, 4, 3, and then 1. Now we end up here, 4th finger, 4th fret of the G string, and we do another set starting from here. So 4, and then 3, 4. Now I find those fingers are quite weak. So just even doing that, it's horrible. I said it's horrible, and it really is. So 4, 3, 2, and then 2, 3, 4, G, D, and A strings. Like I say, probably do try to do alternate plucking, but I'm cheating a little bit and raking. Then we've got 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and then 1. And then we have the last final home stretch where we're starting now. Little finger, 4th fret on the E string. I'll just take this opportunity to mention something very important, which is that the frets are wide here. So this will all be really difficult. So if at any point you feel a strain going on, especially in these tendons down here, then you must stop. You can't go through that pain barrier. Otherwise you'll head towards tendinitis and various repetitive strain injuries. So you want to avoid that. You want to be holding the bass in a way that you can just have your wrist quite straight. The one thing you can do is just move across. So let's, for example, go to the 7th fret, and you can do it starting from there. The pattern will be the same. Like I say, once you study the tab and sit down with this, you'll see what I mean with that diagonal thing I'm talking about. Let's stay here and do the last one. So we've got finger 4, and then 3, 1, and then 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So once you've finished like one block, you can move to the 2nd fret and do another, and really just do as much as you can, because you'll get pretty bored of this. Like I say, it's not very exciting sounding. It's not very musical sounding. When I heard Justin Chancellor doing his one, I think it was something like... Now, these kind of mechanical exercises, I'm not a massive fan of them, but they are really good, I think, for coordination and for stamina. I think if you don't use a metronome at first, that's better. And then I had a metronome going at 120 beats per minute, every beat, and just trying to keep everything flowing. So here it is once more without a metronome. One thing I'm noticing that I'm doing when I'm ascending, so like this, I'm just using what's called the floating thumb technique, just in order that these E and A strings don't ring out. I'm just putting my thumb on them, just resting lightly against them when I'm not plucking them. So like this. So at this point here, I don't need the E string anymore, so my thumb comes down. At this point, I don't need the A string, so my thumb comes down. That's just one of many ways to mute. Fretting hand-wise, we're using one finger per fret at all times here. That's why it's a bit demanding. Now, if you put your hand like this, you'll see that there's not much of a stretch at all going on there between the first and little fingers. But if you really work on that stretch, and it's all about sort of creating a V shape between the fingers. If you just do that, then you suddenly have more of a distance between the first and the little fingers, and your stretch will be better. A lot of bass playing doesn't use this strict technique, so you don't have to worry about this. It's just a good way of getting mechanics going. Like I say, if you move up here, it's a little bit less taxing on the hand. When I go in this direction from the 1st fret, there's a little temptation to lose the muting a bit. That kind of thing. So you've got to be careful with this. Use your ears, try to make the best tone you can, and that's really going to involve both hands being coordinated and taking care of things like muting and plucking, fretting. All of these things have got to work in sync. In terms of plucking, I more or less can't do strict alternate plucking with this. I don't know about you, but if I was to start, let's go, I'm going to go 5th fret now, do the same thing. If I start with my index finger and do this slowly. So far not so bad. Index, middle, index all the way. At this point here, I much prefer to rake, which is probably why I should work on the alternate plucking. Let's do it again. By the way, this is quite a good example of what you might want to do in practice. I'm doing this live in front of you, so I'm definitely making a mistake here. But I have to slow this down, otherwise I'm going to lose it. So index, middle, that's what I'm working on now, plucking. Right, that bit there, that felt really uncomfortable. It's when I go index, middle, index, middle. So what I would do is if I were playing a piece or a bass line, I would do the same thing. I would isolate the hard bit and just figure out why it's so difficult for me. That feels a bit unnatural. On the other hand, if I did middle index instead of index middle, that feels good, right? I can do that. I think it's just the mechanics of the way the fingers are. Look, the longer one and the shorter one. I don't know if you're the same, but for me that feels easy. Going middle, index, middle, index. If I did the other way around, index, middle, it feels a bit weirder. But if I started with my index, that's exactly where I would end up here. Maybe I'll start with the middle now. But you end up with the same thing. Look, so you don't have to alternately pluck all the time. And you don't have to use one finger per fret all the time. There are different systems of playing the bass and fretting and plucking. I'm going to do a lesson on fingering systems actually on bass, do a little bit more of a deeper dive into this. But this exercise, it's not musical. You can make it your own. Feel free to do the raking if you need to do that. Do use a metronome when you can. It's just really one of these things to build strength, stamina, accuracy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the link below with the PDF. I'm also going to put a link in that blog post on my website to a bunch of other musical exercises. I'll put a link to my book as well. If you want some musical exercises that are a little less horrible than that one. Thanks very much for getting to this point. If you do have any questions, do let me know. I'll see you on the next lesson.